G'day, I'm Paul. So we were told a while back that parity between electric cars and internal combustion cars wasn't far away. Well, it's not really that true at the entry level. We're still seeing electric cars are still quite expensive. But what happens when you step up to the premium end of town? And I was doing a bit of research the other day and I stumbled across the pricing for the i4. They've introduced a new entry level to that. And it's about $9,000 cheaper than the cheapest 3 Series you can get in Australia. So the electric car is cheaper. And then on top of that, because it fits in under our luxury car tax threshold, it's actually then subject to some tax benefits as well. So today, what I want to do, I want to figure out whether it is actually better now to go for the electric version of the internal combustion car, and whether as a BMW, the electric version of the car still lives up to all the traits that we all know and love about BMWs. So I'm going to run you through all the pricing and all that sort of stuff in a second, but if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes that are on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you can find out every single time we do fun stuff with BMWs. Now let's talk about pricing. So the 330 in Australia now starts at just under $95,000. The cost of that car has gone up over time. And then compare that to the i4, which at the entry level is the eDrive 35. That now starts at under $86,000. And that's important because it sits in under the luxury car tax threshold. That means you are getting some tax benefits. It means if you do get a novated lease, you're exempt from FBT. You also don't have to pay GST as well. So there's a lot of savings there. And for those that don't know, a novated lease is basically where they take the car payments out of your salary pre-tax. That means you don't have to give that money to the taxman. You can go dump it on a car instead. So they are the benefits. Now, what are the actual differences though? So the spec is quite interesting. There are only some minor differences. The 330i comes standard with the M Sport package. So you're getting the M Sport brakes, you're getting adaptive suspension, you've got 19-inch alloy wheels as well. I quite like the look of this. The 3 Series is still a fantastic looking car. They've got that, not the oversized grille at the front there. When you compare that to the i4 though, the i4 is, I guess, a bit more subdued. They've got that big grille down the front there, so it is a bit of a styling statement in comparison. You're also getting 18s there instead of the 19s that you get on the 3 Series. And in addition to that, you also don't have adaptive damping. So over here it is a passive damping setup. You also don't have the M Sport brakes. So this, I guess, looks a little bit different to the 3 Series in that sense. It doesn't look as sporty or out there, but outside of that, the tech is pretty similar. Both of them have LED headlights, with the exception being the 3 Series has matrix LED functionality. Now, come around to the back with me. This is probably where the other difference is. Here around the rear, both get LED tail lights. I will mention here that you can actually get the eDrive 40, which gives you a bit more of that M Sport appearance, and you can actually option up a couple of little bits and pieces there on the entry-level i4 as well, but that is all going to cost you money. Second you get over that luxury car tax threshold, you miss out on the ability to do your FBT exemption as well. So in terms of boot space, I was actually quite surprised by this. So in the 3 Series sedan, you're talking about 480 litres, and with that comes with a fairly high boot lip, and traditional with a sedan, you sort of have quite a narrow opening there for getting your bits and pieces in. But if you jump over to the i4, it actually has this hatchback shape. So it's the sort of Grand Coupe design, sort of slopes down at the back there. And that means you're actually getting a hatchback on the rear of it. That means lower entry lip here for loading things in, and then a slightly smaller boot, so 470 litres. So you're losing 10 litres capacity here between the two. You do get underfloor storage at the back here as well to pop your cables and other odds and ends in as well. So it is actually a pretty generous storage space there. If you are going to be using this for a family and that kind of thing, you can load prams in and get all the sort of critical things that you need in there. Now, obviously this is an electric vehicle, so let me quickly run you through the charging stats and the batteries. So you have both AC and DC charging. AC charging works at up to 3-phase 11 kilowatts, which is pretty decent. DC charging works at up to a peak of 180 kilowatts and an average of 95. Uses a battery capacity of around 70 kilowatt hours, with around 67 kilowatt hours of that usable. That means a driving range of a little over 400 kilometers on the WLTP cycle. So look, I mean, you are making a compromise here by going for the eDrive 35 over the 40, because that has a bigger battery capacity and more driving range. And I will explain later on why perhaps that isn't isn't such a bad thing. So we are inside the cabin of the i4. I thought I'd run you through just some of the highlights here and how it compares to the internal combustion 3 Series, just as a tech comparison. So both of them have the latest version for this platform of OS 8. So that is the iDrive system that these cars feature. There is a newer version that's been released in the new 5 Series that is slightly different to this, but it is predominantly the same with a couple of small changes. So here in the i4, you're getting a 14-inch display for the infotainment system and then a smaller 12.3-inch display ahead of the driver here. You also get a head-up display as well. The difference, though, with the 3 Series is that it has a 14.9-inch infotainment system, so ever so slightly bigger, but the functionality is the same. So that means you get inbuilt satellite navigation. And then OS 8 also comes with these sort of widgets that you can add to the home screen here, and then you can move them around as well as required. So there's sort of pretty straightforward functionality there. You also have connected services on both cars, so it means that you can pair the vehicle with your phone. You can remotely check in on it, and it's pretty useful for an electric vehicle. I wouldn't be buying an electric car today if I couldn't log into it remotely and see what it's doing in terms of its charging and charge status. That stuff is really important when it comes to owning an electric vehicle. So it's good that this has all of that functionality. In addition to that, both of them have a 10-speaker sound system. You can get an optional Harman Kardon sound system as well. Standard sound system is fine, nothing sort of too crazy, but it does the job for a vehicle like this. In addition to that, you have wireless smartphone mirroring, so you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So that takes up the entire screen there and is nice and sharp and really quick as well. So that's what Apple CarPlay looks like. This is what Android Auto looks like. So same story again, full screen integration and pretty sharp and snappy as well. Head of the driver, you can configure some elements here on the screen using these selectors here on the steering wheel. So you can customize that a little bit as you go. In terms of connectivity, both cars have wireless phone charging. You've got USB-A connectivity, USB-C connectivity, and a 12-volt outlet as well. In terms of the appearance, what you'll notice is with the M Sport package in the 3 Series, looks a little bit more premium. So you've got the M Sport seats, which I absolutely love. They look sensational. And some of the materials just appear to be slightly nicer. But at the end of the day, this is an entry-level vehicle, and to me, it actually still presents really nicely, despite the fact it is at the entry level of the i4 range. Now, in terms of room, this is a slightly different design to the 3 Series sedan because it has that swooping rear on it. So in the front here, your leg and headroom is great. There's sort of no dramas there. But when you step to the second row, this is slightly more cramped. You also have these pillarless windows, so it is a kind of a cool design feature, and it's unique to this type of shape. But yeah, that is a slight difference there, and it does come with a compromise of a headroom in the second row and also a little bit of leg room as well. Nothing out of control, but it is just something worth noticing. In terms of the safety tech, you're getting radar cruise control in both vehicles, so it is the tech that will keep the distance to the car in front of you. You've also got auto-dimming rear vision mirror, blind spot monitoring in both cars, front and rear cross-traffic alert. You have autonomous emergency braking. One of the other things you're going to notice as well here is the i4 has just a reverse view camera. It doesn't have a 360 camera, but you do get front and rear parking sensors, which kind of make up for it. Plus, you also get the reversing assistant, one of my favorite features. So if you're driving down like a narrow one-way road and you've got to back out of it, basically you can use that to recite the last 50 meters of travel, and it will do it with perfection. So it means you're not going to scrape the wheels or anything when you're trying to get out of that street. We actually shot a video demonstrating that working. You can click up there to watch that. So good to see that both of the vehicles actually have that technology as well. Okay, so we've just hit the road in the 330i. What we'll do here, I'm going to drive both of these back to back. I really want to see, are you losing out anything by switching to electric? You are saving money, but what is the difference there when you actually move across in terms of driving dynamics? We'll do a couple of laps of our ride and handling track here, slow one, a fast one, and then I've got a little bit of a surprise at the end as well. We're in the trusty 330 to start with. So this uses a turbocharged 2-litre petrol engine. So it's a 4-cylinder. It makes 190 kilowatts of power and 400 newton meters of torque. And that's all mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. So it's just a regular torque converter automatic. That's actually one of the things that I really like about the BMW range. They've moved away from dual clutch transmissions, and it's now all about torque converters. And to me, it is just a smooth gearbox. There's no fussing about, it just does the job, and that is probably what I like the most about it. Now behind the wheel here, that means if you give the throttle a kick, gives you a nice push in the back. Love that sound too. So it's got a nice sort of throaty note to it. It is just I don't know, the quintessential 3 Series. It's not sort of outrageous like an M340i, and it's not lacking punch like the 320 was. This is right in that nice little sweet spot, and it gives you the performance but also comfort at the same time. Now let's talk fuel economy. So the cool thing here is that these vehicles allow you to log your fuel economy from the factory, and the 2 vehicles that we're testing today are actually owned by BMW employees. They're not press cars, and the advantage of that is that they haven't been thrashed. Whenever I do factory figures on a press car, they're always inaccurate because it's been driven by hooligans and lunatics like me. So what we're seeing here, official figure, 6.5 litres per 100 k's from factory, 6.5 litres per 100 k's, and that's over almost 5,000 kilometres of driving. So this is bang on that fuel economy figure. And when you think about it, 6.5 litres per 100 k's for a sedan, it's actually a really impressive economy figure. So it does show you that this is quite an efficient engine, and they've been able to really extract a lot of it over its life. So even though you are saving money with the electric vehicle, this actually doesn't use a huge amount of fuel itself. The other thing to note as well with that fuel economy too is that this requires premium unleaded fuel. So 95 RON is your minimum. It's going to cost you a little bit extra to fuel every time you go to the Bowser. Now, I will point out that here with the 19s, even with adaptive damping, the ride is a little bit firm. So that is one of the compromises you make when they add an M Sport package to these vehicles. It is slightly firmer than what you would expect, even when it is in the comfort setting. If you do switch it to Sport, the ride gets really firm. So that is worth keeping in mind. If you're using this as a daily, you are going to compromise ever so slightly with the ride in comparison to something like an A4 or a C-Class. Let's talk road noise. So that is one of the other compromises you make, both with an internal combustion vehicle and also one that's riding on 19s like this is. So over coarse chip surfaces in particular, this tends to carry a fair bit of road noise into the cabin. So we tested it with our calibrated sound meter, and this is how it went. I'll show you a comparison to the i4 when we take that for a bit of a spin. Now let's talk visibility. So 3 Series sedan versus 4 Series. Basically, visibility here is great. So I can see clearly out the front there. Wing mirrors are nice and big. I've got a blind spot monitor built into those. Visibility out the back is pretty good as well. So it ticks all of those boxes. Now, the thing we've all been wanting to know, what does this feel like when we slot it over into sport mode? So let's go over to Sport Plus and we'll go for a lap of our track. Nice. That is really nice and sharp. Alrighty. God, this is so much fun to drive. It's really nice and light and darty as well. So we're talking about tare weight of around 1,500 kilos. So it means that you don't have the complexity or weight of an all-wheel drive system. And then when you do want to get stuck into it, it is actually quite sort of entertaining. You've got great steering feel. Brakes feel really good too. It just sits nice and flat through the corners as well, and that engine is really nice and responsive. So given it doesn't weigh a massive amount, it's actually quite enjoyable to throw around and have fun with. So yeah, it is the classic BMW experience. So yeah, really happy with it. Let's jump into the i4 and see what it's like when we do actually save $9,000 off the sticker price plus all the extra benefits that you're getting and you switch to electric. Are you still getting the same feel? I think that is primarily what I'm concerned about. Okay, so we are now in the i4. So this is a similar concept to the 3 Series in the sense that it's rear-wheel drive, and I am glad they didn't go down the path of making this front-wheel drive because, you know, when you think BMW, especially on a sporty vehicle like this, you want it to still feel sporty, and that to me means rear-wheel drive. So you've just got a single motor on the rear axle. There is an all-wheel drive version of this vehicle called the M50, but that's going to need a much bigger investment. Now, what does all that mean? So 210 kilowatts of power and 400 newton meters of torque. So the exact same amount of torque that you're getting out of the internal combustion 330i. Difference here, though, is that when you punch the throttle, it is instant. There is absolutely no lag. You don't have to wait for the gearbox to kick down, it is instant. And did you hear that noise? Have a listen. That is what they call the BMW iconic sound. So basically composed by Hans Zimmer, he's a famous composer, and they've come up with these noises. You can thankfully switch all of that stuff off, but it gives you a correlation between throttle input and I guess torque delivery. So it is one of those things you're either going to love or you're going to hate. Thankfully, you can switch it off if you need to. What is most exciting to me, though, is that it is just instant on the throttle. You hit it and it goes. So now, the other benefits here as well, when you do buy an electric BMW in this sort of price bracket, you're getting 1 year of free charging here on the entry level. So that is through the ChargeFox network. They give you basically the ability to go up to any of these public chargers that they have across Australia, plug up and charge free of charge, which I think is a good thing. Keep in mind, though, we have noted previously that the reliability of that network isn't fantastic. So my advice would be to use the app PlugShare. It's a free app and it gives you really good understanding of which chargers are working, which aren't. People check in, take photos, all that sort of stuff. So, but if you do find your favourite charger, it's one that you're going to be quite familiar with. Now, the other thing worth pointing out as well, when you do a novated lease, they give you a balloon payment, which is an indication of what you're going to have to pay at the end of the lease if you want to buy the car back. What you can also do, though, is guaranteed future value. And you can do that on these electric vehicles. And a lot of people have in their mind that electric vehicles depreciate quite fast, and that is the case for some of them. So having a mechanism like your guaranteed future value means that if you are taking it out on a lease, you're going to know exactly what it's worth at the end of the lease, and you can either return the car or pay the balloon and take it. I think that is definitely peace of mind that is worth taking up if you're buying an electric car today, especially as the tech evolves as fast as it does. It is worth knowing what the car is going to be worth, so there are no surprises. Now let's talk about economy. So BMW claims a combined economy of just under 19 kilowatt hours of energy per 100 Ks. Again, just like the other 3 Series, this is somebody's car, and since factory, almost 4,000 Ks on the clock, it's averaging 18.1, which is less than the manufacturer claim, which is pretty good. That means that every 100 kilometers of driving that you're doing, you're using 18 kilowatt hours of energy. And if you did want to do the sums on that, you can multiply your kilowatt hour rate at home, as an example, by that number there, and it'll tell you how much it's going to cost you to drive it every 100 Ks. Now, I promised a bit of dynamic driving to see whether this stacks up against the 3 Series. So I've put it into sport mode. Definitely feels nice and sporty. We've got our... This is really fun. So there is a big weight penalty. This weighs a little under 2,000 kilograms, so it is heavier than the 3 Series, but I'll tell you what, it is still absolutely moving, and over 200 kilowatts of power means that you are getting a fair bit of a hit behind the wheel here. You do notice the difference there with the suspension. This not having the adaptive damping setup means it has a little bit more body roll, but while it sort of has that body roll, you are actually getting a much smoother ride. Really nice and comfortable. It's got on big chunky tyres as well, which helps. Oh, this is really fun here behind the wheel. I wasn't expecting this. You think to yourself entry level and you think, oh, it's not going to be very exciting, but it's actually not too bad. It's hoofing along really nicely. Fantastic. That is unreal. Holy crap, I was not expecting that. This thing absolutely hauls. Very nice. Yeah, so look, I mean, ultimately they're two different beasts. You're getting that sort of audio experience in the 3 Series when you're on it and you're sort of throwing it around. It sits a bit flatter through the corners, but ultimately this feels like a slightly better round offering in the sense that it has a bit of extra body roll, but the benefit to that is that in and around town the ride is really nice and smooth, so you're not feeling edgy and sort of sporty in that sense. So when you do go to punt it, you do notice that, but it can be actually quite playful in the sense that an MX-5 is. It's got that body roll, but you kind of know it's happening, you feel it's happening, and to me that is the excitement that it brings behind the wheel. So so that's pretty good. I did notice steering feel though, not quite as direct as the 3 Series, so this has a slight bit of numbness to it. It sort of has that comfort dialed in, but obviously not the end of the world, but it is good to know that this still has those sporty characteristics. I'll point out on road noise as well, just certainly from behind the wheel here, this feels like it has less road noise inside the cabin, so it is running on a smaller alloy wheel, so you tend to find that's the case. Being an electric vehicle as well, you don't have engine noise coming into the cabin, but this is how it went up against our calibrated sound meter, and put an overlay up on the screen there so you can see how it compares to the 3 Series sedan as well. On the visibility front, front side vision is fine. You've got that blind spot monitoring set up here as well, but visibility out the rear is just a little bit more compromised. It's quite a narrow envelope as you look out the back, but you've got that reverse view camera, the front and rear parking sensors anyway, so it's not exactly the end of the world. Now it's time to do something a bit fun. We've just come out of the i4, back into the 3 Series. I mentioned before, on-road driving, that's all great. I think we've ticked the box that electric is as good as this on-road. It was, certainly for me, it was pretty exciting. But what's it like when you switch everything off? Can you still do what the 3 Series is famous for, being rear-wheel drive and fun to just chuck around? So we've got our Skidpan here. I said before, these aren't my cars, these are employee cars. I don't want to destroy the tyres. So we've wet the Skidpan down, but I want to see, can you do some circles with stability control switched off like you can in the 3 Series? So we'll go out now in the 3 Series and see what that is like. And then we'll do it in the i4 as well to see if it matches that experience. And then after that, I'm going to run you through the performance figures as well, which we've logged to give you an idea of what they're like in a straight line. So put this into Sport Plus. I'm going to switch stability control off. That's all off. I'm going to set our gears to 2nd gear, because I think that should be suitable for what we're doing here. So let's see how it goes. The benefit of this car being as light as it is that you can really have a lot of fun with it. You just lean on the throttle and it kind of just guides itself around here with absolute ease. Obviously it does help that it's wet at the moment. In the dry this would be much harder to achieve, but ultimately I'm just pointing in the direction I need to go, holding the throttle down, and then it's taking care of the rest here in 2nd gear. So then we'll jump over now to the to the i4 and we'll give that a crack as well to see if it does indeed do the exact same thing. Okay, so time to try it in the i4. This is going to be interesting. Rear-wheel drive electric car, but it is a BMW, so hopefully it does actually work. Let's see what happens. So stability control's off. We're in sport mode. There are some dry patches now, so a little bit concerned about that, but let's see how we go. So it's a lot more sensitive on the throttle. I have to be careful because if I bury the throttle, it'll spit me out here, but it is doing what the 3 Series was doing, albeit not as easily, but it is still going around in circles, which is awesome for an electric car, right? And something that we thought an electric car probably shouldn't or wouldn't do. So I'm really glad they've been able to achieve exactly that, which is making this interesting to drive, even in conditions like that where you wouldn't typically think an electric car works. Now, before we get to the actual performance figures, I just wanted to tell you about Help Me CarExpert. If you do want to buy a new car, we have a network of great dealers that we deal with who can get you a good deal on a new car. Just go to Google and type in Help Me CarExpert. It'll take you to a page that explains all of the details. Now, what about the straight line performance figures? So I went down earlier and set some times. I'm also going to be quiet during this so you can actually hear what the cars sound like when they're accelerating across the quarter mile. So this is how that went. So there you go, 3 Series, ever so slightly quicker, both 0 to 100 and across the quarter mile. We already knew that because on paper it is quicker, but it actually is quite surprising that the electric car was actually doing pretty well. Also, not a full battery either. They tend to be quicker when the battery is full. Now, what is the conclusion we garnered out of all of this? So I think what I've come to here is that between these two cars in particular, there really is very little difference between the performance characteristics and also the handling characteristics. This is definitely a softer vehicle, but the benefit of that is that it's nicer to drive around town. This is still a bona fide, sporty, luxury sedan, and I love that they have kept that character to it. So which should you buy? Look, if you do want to save money, I mean, $9,000 is a big chunk of money, and that is before you even do anything when it comes to saving on GST and your FBT exemption as well. So I think that is something you've got to factor in. Can you charge it? That is the other thing to factor in as well. While this does have a year of free charging, it means that you have to go and find a charger, hope that it works, plug up, all that sort of stuff. Whereas if you do have charging facilities at home, like we do with our car, even though our Tesla Model Y has around the same range as the i4, maybe slightly more, it is a car that we just charge once a week at home, and that's it. And we do about 20-odd thousand Ks a year. So I think it shows you that unless you're doing lots and lots of driving each week, a petrol sedan probably isn't going to be the sensible alternative any longer. So I'm keen for your feedback. This is always a bit of a controversial one when we compare an electric car to a petrol car, but when you look at the cost saving this time around, and it is a big cost saving, I think the numbers really do stack up for the electric car. So let me know in the comments section below, what do you reckon? Which one are you going to buy? Have you bought either of these? Would you just never buy an electric car, or would you just never buy a petrol car again? I'm keen for your feedback. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.